Hello, my name is Alice, and I have been in many fandoms since my childhood. I found fandom culture in 2014 to 2015, and my first real fandom was Five Nights at Freddy's, out of all things. And that was the moment my already slim chances of becoming a normal adult completely vanished. But jokes aside, fandoms have been a part of my life from a very young age, and this has really pushed me both creatively as well as on a personal level. When life has gotten hard, fandoms have acted as a safe space for me, something to distract me and comfort me through life. Now, this may sound a bit dramatic, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this as well. After all, being in fandoms and keeping up with series, games, movies, and more is a hobby like any other. That being said, fandoms have always had their bad apples, some more than others, and sadly, Helluva Boss is just one of those fandoms. I discovered Helluva Boss in early 2024 when Has Been Hotel dropped on Amazon Prime, and I became obsessed. I really don't know what it is about Helluva Boss that drew me in, or even what I specifically like about it. It is a dumpster fire in many ways, just like Has Been Hotel, but something about the vibe of the storyline, the characters, and the dramatic, cheesy relationship drama kept me watching. In case you aren't familiar, in short, Helluva Boss is a web cartoon centered around Hell and its inhabitants. In Helluva Boss, an imp named Blitz runs his own company, where he and his employees portal themselves to the human world to kill humans for their clients. Now, there's naturally a bunch of other stuff too, but that's the very boiled down version of the story. The series also has its fair share of controversies for several reasons which I won't bring up in this video, but there are plenty, and I mean plenty, of videos on the subject if you want to know more. Instead, I want to bring some positivity, hopefully, to this mess of a fandom and make some fun character designs based on the characters from Helluva Boss. Now, I've already done a similar video where I designed human forms for the main 6 from My Little Pony, so make sure to watch that if you feel inclined. Basically, the concept is that I pick a few characters, usually the most major ones, and make human designs for them. Now, I know that there are human disguises for some of the characters in the show already, but please note that this is not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to redesign or design human disguises. I'm designing these characters as humans if they lived in reality in our real world. So basically a normal person, Earth AU, or whatever. Anyway, with that long outro out of the way, here's the characters I have selected for this challenge. First of all, we have Blitz, since, you know, he's the main character. Then we have Luna, his daughter, and of course, Millie and Moxie, his employees. After that, we have Stolas, and so naturally his daughter Octavia as well. I also included Stella, his wife/ex-wife, depending on how deep we are in the story. She hasn't been that important for the story yet, like she hasn't really been developed that well within the show, but I felt I had to include her in my own AU for storyline purposes. Also, it makes the women outnumber the men, which makes me happy. So anyway, with that, let's begin. So first of all, we have Blitz. Now, for each character, I made a mood board and a Procreate sketch. Now, admittedly, the sketches got a little out of hand and turned into more than just sketches, but I digress. Complete with this character also comes a new storyline. Basically, I've taken the storylines from within the show and applied them to the real world as best I could. So yeah, let's begin. I'm thinking that this AU takes place in the US, considering the show is from there, and most of the voice actors are American. Now, in the show, Blitz is an imp, which is one of the lower ranking species in Hell's hierarchy. This means that running his own business is a very difficult thing to do, and it is seen as rather taboo. I thought that the closest we can come to that scenario in real life is a POC person being harassed and having a hard time due to their race. And so naturally, I decided to make Blitz into a POC person as a human. Honestly, I think this is kind of what the imps are supposed to represent anyway, or rather the way imps are treated is basically the closest to racism you can kind of come in this hellscape. So I just saw it as fitting. Now specifically, I decided to make him Romani. Now this is because in the show, Blitz's family runs a circus which eventually burns down due to an accident caused by himself, killing his mother, injuring his best friend, and turning his twin sister against him in the process. This left him with permanent burn scars, which I've also incorporated into his design, as you'll see later. But anyway, as I did my research for this video, I happened upon several articles discussing Romani people's connection to the circus, especially in Europe. Now, in Sweden, where I live, Romani people used the circus as a refuge. They were treated extremely poorly here in Sweden and in many, many other places as well, and the circus made them living and traveling easier since people were generally more accepting of a circus company than a Romani one. This is, of course, extremely horrid. The treatment of Romani people in Europe is something I was taught about in school and something that has always upset me greatly. Now, I'll leave some links with articles about the subject in the description in case you're interested, because I feel like it's important to have sources and viable information on subjects like this available for everyone. So, there will be links with those in the description. But anyway, I decided that Blitz is Romani and that he comes from a family of Romani immigrants that have been running a circus in the US since the 1800s. Now, just like in the show, Blitz never really felt like he fit into the circus and into the life of being a clown, and after the circus burned down, he was banished by his father. This, much like in the show, led him to a life of crime on the streets, where he got by on thievery, drug smuggling, and embezzlement of various companies where he managed to get jobs. Eventually, he discovers that he's in fact very good at this, and this leads us to his company. Now, in the show, he's quite literally an assassin, which I feel is a little, extreme, perhaps? Obviously, there are assassins in real life too, but I feel like Hell's morals and morals in cartoons overall aren't really comparable to real life, so I decided to have him do something less extreme, just to kind of balance out the morals in Hell and here, I guess. So basically, my idea for Blitz's company, IMP, which stands for Immediate Murder Professionals in the show, but now stands for Intellectual Money Professionals, extremely dumb, I'm aware, is that it's an insurance and finance company. Basically, they handle the finances and insurances of big companies while helping them commit tax fraud and other financial crimes and covering for them. In return, they get a slice of the money. My thought is that they are involved with some pretty big companies and that the business is quite successful. Now, I know next to nothing about finances, which you probably just gathered from the vague company description, but I hope I could give you at least a decent idea of what IMP could be in the real world. Basically, a business that just poses as one thing, meanwhile they're doing money laundering on the side. Again, I don't know if this would actually work in the real life, but this is what I came up with. It's just a silly AU, so I'm not gonna go too hard into it. But now that we got a lot of background info about Blitz and about this AU covered, let's talk a little bit more about the character himself. So in the show, Blitz is shown to be very loud, rude, and seemingly self-assured, but as the show progresses, we are shown a very vulnerable and insecure side of him instead. After all the pain he left behind at the circus, he's scared to let anyone in, especially romantically, and yet he craves closeness just like anyone else. This causes him to hyper-focus on relationships that aren't attainable for him. For example, his employees' marriage. He can watch them and fantasize about what that closeness would feel like without the fear of actually getting involved, since he knows it will never happen. This conundrum leaves him feeling lonely and unloved, and because he keeps being an asshole and hurting people around him who tries to get close, his self-hatred is ever growing. Now, this obviously paints Blitz as a rather depressing and unlikable guy, and in many ways he is. However, those closest to him knows that he does have some good sides as well. For example, he is fiercely protective of the few people he has actually let into his life, and is for the most part very loyal to them. He will also stop at nothing to get what he wants, which is how he started his company in the first place. He's a complex character, and I think that translates really well into this human version of him. In the show, he also loves horses, most likely due to his time in the circus, and I let that stay as it is because why not, honestly. Now, my final thoughts about his design is that I like it. I go purely off of vibes when it comes to human designs, and I feel like this human version of him captures the vibe of the character quite well. I gave him some earrings since, based on my research, a big part of Romani wear is jewelry, especially gold jewelry, which I find very beautiful personally. He also wears a shirt with a pattern that is inspired by the type of fabrics and patterns that Romani people has worn and still wears. I feel like in this human AU, Blitz's culture is very important to him since it was important to his mother, but he doesn't like talking about it to other people, seeing as it's very personal and painful. I also want to add as a add-on that I did remove the gun that I gave him in the original sketch because I just felt like it didn't really fit into the AU. Also, I know he has a fuck-ass haircut. I'm sorry, but like, he really does. It's an ugly haircut. But that's, partially it's because, I had a hard time making his haircut work. But also, I do feel like he would have a greasy, gross, slick back because, you know, he's a businessman running his own business, and in the show, Blitz isn't really the type of person to really properly take care of himself that well, so I feel like he would just get, like, a fistful of gel and just shove his hair back to kind of get it out of his eyes, and it's, like, a little overgrown and not cut properly and stuff, so it's like, I feel like it fits him, even if it's ugly. The next character we are going to talk about is Luna. Luna is one of the characters who actually has a canon human disguise, and so technically she actually already has a human design. However, and don't kill me when I say this, but I don't like her human disguise, so I made some changes, but we'll get into that later though. For now, let's talk about who Luna is. So Luna is Blitz's adopted daughter. He adopted her when she was just shy of turning 18, since the shelter she lived in would just cast her into the street otherwise. I'm thinking that Luna has a similar backstory in this AU, where her parents either died at a young age or gave her away due to poverty, and so she ended up in the foster care system. Now, from what little research I've done about the US foster care system, it's not great, and I don't think the US is alone in that. I know the foster care system here in Sweden, where I live, isn't great either, so it seems to be a worldwide problem. Now, kids usually don't stay in the system for long, at least not long periods at a time, but they tend to be moved a lot, so I'm thinking that's the case for Luna. She stayed with many families, some of them abusive and neglectful, and she's escaped many times and has ended up in juvie many times. So she's been very in and out of the system and has a very rough childhood and teenage years. So ending up with Blitz right before aging out was just amazing for her. He actually cares about her, pays attention to her, and feeds her, plus when he started his company, he immediately hired her. Now, Luna works as a receptionist at his company, both in the series and in my AU. Now, I'm thinking in the AU, he hired her because she has a hard time getting a job elsewhere due to her criminal record. But Blitz does keep her out of the illegal parts of his company, hence why she is merely a receptionist. He doesn't actually want her to actually end up in jail now that she's above 18, but still wants her to have a stable job, and this was just like the best solution he could come up with. Now, Luna is very cold and downright mean due to her having a hard time opening up to people. She has developed this very cold personality throughout her traumatic childhood, but is slowly opening up to Blitz and his employees. Now, Luna opening up to her family also makes her open up to others eventually, which helps her make new friends and get herself out of her bubble a little. Now, in my opinion, Helluva Boss has this problem where their female characters, even though they're major characters, just aren't fleshed out enough. Like, they have a backstory and a basic personality, but then that's it. Like, Luna has her cold personality and her traumatic background, but what else? Does she have any hobbies? Any quirks? I don't know, because the show sure isn't telling me. So, for every female character that lacks proper personality development, I've given some little hobbies and details just to kind of make them a little more human for this AU. So, that being said, Luna's hobby is video games, which I think fits her since she has trouble socializing and spending a lot of time in her room. Now, obviously, not every gamer is a social outcast. I'm not saying that. However, online social spaces are usually very important for people who have trouble communicating in real life, and so I thought this fit Luna because of that reason. Like maybe she meets some nice people online who she can eventually meet up with when she feels ready. Who knows? I think she would like shooting games the most, like GTA or Call of Duty, but I don't know. I'm more of a Sims and Stardew girly myself, so you tell me in the comments what you think she would play. As for the design, as I previously mentioned, I do not like Luna's canon human design. I just don't like how small and skinny she is. There's nothing wrong with being small and skinny, I mean, obviously, and it's not like Luna's official character design is on the bigger side or anything, but she is portrayed as tall and curvy, and I don't know, I guess her human design just doesn't match my personal vision of her. Like, I know her regular form is a wolf, and that's why she's tall and curvy, but I don't know, I feel like I'd want her human disguise to kind of reflect that. I don't know, I just feel like there's no reason for her human disguise to be small and, slim. Also, I just don't like her clothes. I know they're the same that she wears in wolf form, but I think they fit her better in wolf form since she has fur and she just has more going on in her design. On her human design, the clothes just kind of look, I don't know, they just look so nothing to me. Also, I am assuming that Luna's supposed to be goth. I might be wrong, but I think she's supposed to be goth. And I know that the goth subculture is heavily based on, morals and music taste, and that the fashion just kind of follows with it, and that's not the most important part of it. But I feel like that is the part that is most recognizable to people who aren't goth, you know? So I just thought it would be funny, not funny, but fun to incorporate some more goth elements from goth fashion into her design. Now, admittedly, I am not that well versed within the goth community. I just don't know that much about the goth style, and I could have done extensive research if I had wanted to, but I am a bit lazy, and this was one design. So I did look up a bunch of reference picture. I did scroll the goth section of fandom wiki. I don't know how accurate that is, but I did scroll it. And I looked up a bunch of like reference pictures. So I don't know. I know there are different like types of goth and different like subgenres within goth. And I don't know which specifically Luna would fit into. I feel like she might be a mishmash of a bunch of them. But yeah, what I can say is that I incorporated a lot of different elements from goth fashion, like the white face paint, the fishnets, the torn black tights, the makeup, and the accessories and stuff like that. But yeah, feel free to comment if you thought my iteration of how a goth person could dress wasn't accurate. I can learn and grow just like any other person. Another change I did to her design is that I made her a bit curvier and a bit taller. And I swear to God, if any Luna Gooner out there tells me she is too fat or something, I am going to lose it. That might seem like kind of a random warning to just give, but I have been in this fandom for over a year now, and there are some very questionable Luna fans out there, regrettably, and I don't want them anywhere near my video. So yeah, if you're gonna comment on women's bodies, just get out of here right now, please. Thank you. Anyway, I also drew her with red eyes, but they're obviously not natural in this AU. She just wears contacts. I'm thinking that she has blue or maybe green eyes IRL or something. But yeah, that's basically it for Luna. I think she turned out good, personally. I did struggle with interpreting her sketch into a finished drawing for some reason, because I love the sketch of her, but I struggled with the pose and stuff like that, so I'm more satisfied with the sketch than I am with the finished product, I fear. But overall, I liked her design, and I honestly thought she was the most fun to sketch. The next character in line is Millie. Now, I gotta say right off the bat, I really like Millie in the show, but she needs some work, so I've definitely added some dimensions to her, which I'm really excited to get into, so let's go. So, in the series, Millie is an assassin imp who works for Blitz at his company. She is bold, brave, and murderous, to say the least. I would say her biggest personality traits is that she's a great assassin, so she's great at what she does. She's hot-headed at times, but at the same time, she's always very positive and kind to the people she loves. And honestly, she has so much patience with her loved ones, especially Blitz, and it's kind of insane. However, like other female characters from the Helluverse, she's not very developed past that point, and she has way too little screen time for her own development. Instead, she's usually developed alongside her male colleagues, and that's obviously a problem. So yes, I'm definitely one of the people hoping and praying for a Millie-centered episode in Season 3. It is way overdue. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to talk about her role in this AU. So in this AU, Millie is from a family of farmers, just like she is in the series. I'm thinking she's Southern because she has a Southern accent in the series, but don't ask me what state she's supposed to be from in this AU, because I do not have the energy to research differences and stuff between states in America. I just don't, nah. It's just not relevant. Anyway, she's African American, just like the rest of her family, which obviously wasn't easy growing up in the southern states, or hell, even the US overall. Millie's family has been on the farm for many generations and struggled through discrimination and hate from the people around them, but they've pushed through anyway and stayed put where they are. Now, Millie loves her family to death and they love her back, but the relationship has been slightly strained since Millie left the farm for a city life in the West. Now, in the show, Millie has a sister called Sally Mae who is trans, and I'm very excited to see more of her in the future as well, by the way. Now, there's a small mini episode that shows how they're close, but that the distance between them has put a toll on their relationship, whereupon they both agree to see each other more often. Now, I'm thinking they have a similar situation going on in my AU, where Millie has left the farm life to have more work and life opportunities. Meanwhile, Sally Mae stays behind in the South to help her family with the farm, despite her being way more unsafe there as a Black trans woman. Now, this is a concept I won't explore that deeply in this video, sadly, considering it's not really relevant to my designs, but it is an example of how a concept that was transferred into a real-world context was made much more complex than it is in the show. And I mean, who knows, if this video does well, I might just make a part 2 where I do some more characters, because Lord knows there is a lot of characters in Helluva Boss. And in that case, I might include Sally Mae, because I do like her a lot, and that way I could explore her eventual story in this AU further. So yeah, comment if you want another one of these videos. Anyway, moving on. Millie works in the city as Blitz's employee. Now, as I previously mentioned with Blitz and Luna, I feel like being an assassin is a little too serious in the human world compared to how it's treated in the Helluverse, so Millie is no longer an assassin in this AU. Instead, she serves as a security guard and backup when dealing with messy clients. So basically, she guards the door to the office and serves as a safeguard when Blitz conducts his meetings with his clients in case something happens. She's always armed just in case and is very good at both shooting and physical self-defense, as her family taught it to her at the farm. She also fills in if someone gets sick or needs help with their work in any way. But I'm honestly unsure if that is a realistic or logical role to have within the company, or like at all, but it's what I came up with and it's what we're running with. Anyway, since Millie isn't an assassin in this AU, I kind of wanted to include those qualities into her hobbies and interests instead. Now, if you remember, I developed Luna's personality slightly by giving her gaming as a hobby, and I'm thinking of doing the same with Millie because she deserves to be a proper person. So her hobbies are knife throwing and archery, which obviously benefits her in her working life, but also serves as a fun way to pass her time. I'm thinking the archery part is also a factor that drove her from the farm, since the major classes and competitions within the sport are mainly found in the city. So yes, I'm thinking Millie competes in archery, not professionally or anything yet, but she has good aim, so she's like working her way up there. Now, for the design, I know her design is quite simple, especially compared to Luna, who we just watched, but I'm not gonna lie, I really like it. I think it still looks like her in a way, even if she's been like humanified or whatever. I think the simple style suits her. I feel like she would choose comfort over appearance, considering her active lifestyle she's been living and who she is as a person. She also has a bunch of scars because of all the stuff she's been through, both as a farm girl and a city girl. Now, when it comes to her hair, it is straight, and I am aware that this isn't a common trait when it comes to Black people, seeing as Black hair is usually curly. There's no real good reason for this except for resemblance between her in the show and her in this AU. I didn't want to completely change her hair shape and texture, since that would result in pretty much everything in her design having been changed. So, I don't know, either she was born with naturally straight hair, which is rare but not impossible, or she straightens it, or she's wearing a wig. Either way, I think she slays it. The next character is Moxie. Now, I don't know why, but I honestly found it so hard to make a human version of Moxie. I really don't know what it is, because I feel like he has a pretty solid features that are easy to translate into a human form, but something never felt quite right while I was sketching this for some reason. Like, I guess the sketch turned out fine, it's just not what I want it to be, I guess. But, I digress. So, in the show, Moxie works for Blitz alongside Millie, and the pair are actually married. Not Blitz and Moxie, that is, but Millie and Moxie. Now, personally, I love their relationship. I think they fit really well together, and they're cute. Now, as a person, Moxie is very anxious and scared of things. He is a bit fragile, maybe, compared to most of the cast. He's also not as good at his job as Millie, which is making him rather insecure about himself. And honestly, I would be too if I was married to such a bad bitch. However, he is steadily improving within IMP and can honestly do so much more than what he thinks he's capable of. Now, this insecurity doesn't merely stem from his lack of killing skills, however. He, like many other characters in Helluva Boss, has a pretty traumatizing past. His family is in the mafia, and his father is basically a mafia boss, I think. I don't know much about how the mafia works, to be honest, because I've never really been interested in that kind of stuff, but yeah, I think he's a mafia boss. This means that Moxie's childhood was very rough. His father was cruel, uncaring, and abusive, both towards Moxie and his mother. He constantly put Moxie down, belittling him and treating him like dirt. Things end up escalating throughout Moxie's childhood, and sadly, Moxie's father ends up killing his mother. Now, this is obviously a huge trauma for Moxie, although I don't think that that's really explored very deeply in the show. Like, I think they explore Moxie's relationship to his father more than they do his, traumas related to his father, if that makes sense. I'm thinking that his story is similar in my AU, as it still works in the real world. However, I feel like I want to expand on it a little more. In my AU, Moxie is half Italian, half Latino, since his father is Italian and his mother was Latino. If I'm not wrong, I think this is what his parents' ethnicities are inspired by in the series as well, based on their clothes and accents and stuff I've seen from Reddit, although that's not really to be trusted, I know. I decided that his mother is from Chile, specifically in my AU, just to kind of specify his background. Now, in my AU, his family is still in the mafia, however, they're not as close by as they seem to be in the show. Instead, they're back in Italy, putting a lot of distance between them and Moxie, making him completely estranged from them. Also, in the show, the only family of Moxie's we're actually shown is his father and his deceased mother, but no one else. So to expand him a little as a character, I'm thinking that there are a lot more family members of his back in Italy, and that the majority of them are either estranged like him or still in the mafia with his father. So his family is essentially extremely torn and broken, making him feel like he doesn't really belong anywhere, further contributing to his insecurity. Also, I feel like his father low-key pressured his mother to move from her family in Chile, basically cutting them off entirely, which means that Moxie has no contacts there either. So we kind of get this dilemma of someone who is mixed and has different cultures or different cultural backgrounds, and yet he isn't connected to either of them anymore, and so he feels lost in this new landscape. So I'm thinking when Moxie joins Blitz's company, he's lost and he's heartbroken. He moved to the US a few years ago. He's had this really bad relationship that left him really sad. And so he joins the company. He meets Millie there, and she becomes his first real anchor. She was the first person he could call home and helped him immensely, both with his transition into becoming an American citizen and learning English, but also with his self-image and mental health. So yeah, I guess I've changed Moxie a bit in my AU, but at the same time not. I've basically just taken his original story and expanded it, I guess. Now, Moxie actually has a canon interest in the show because I guess he's a man or something, and that is musicals. He is a huge musical nerd and loves to watch them and fangirl over them. Now, I myself did have a huge musical phase between 2017, 2019, something like that. So I know some musicals at least. I wasn't the biggest diehardest fan, so I don't know every single musical or anything, but I knew a few. And based on the ones I know, I feel like he would love Phantom of the Opera since it was referenced in the show. And I feel like he would love Legally Blonde, right? Just because he loves to see girl bosses like his wife represented. Tell me I'm wrong, I dare you. Anyway, so to circle back to the design, I'm not that happy with it. I don't think it's bad. I don't know, man. I just can't seem to get it to match what I imagined in my head before I started, I guess. I do like that I kept his bow tie from the show, though. I feel like he was low-key forced to dress fancy all the time as a child to keep up looks for his father, and although he has since moved on from him, he still feels undressed without it. I don't know. It wasn't meant to be as deep as it sounded, but anyway, it's not my proudest work, but I do like the storyline I came up with for him. The next character is Stolas. Now, since Stolas is a pretty major character, he's pretty fleshed out. However, a big part of his character development and background relies on the rules of Hell to be in order, so let's get into reworking him so that he works in this AU. But first, I feel like we need to establish what the rules within the universe is. So this is going to be a bit ranty and a bit messy, but just hold on for a minute. So in the series, Stolas is a Goetian prince. Now, what is a Goetian prince, you might ask? Well, we're gonna go on a bit of an off tangent to answer that question. So the Helluverse, aka the universe where Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss takes place, is based on a lot of different things. For example, the Bible, Dante's Inferno, folklore, internet culture, and more. In the Helluverse, there is a hierarchy in Hell that basically ranks different types of creatures and demons. Now, I don't think there's any official, visual, but there's a lot of fan-made visuals of the ranks, so I'm just gonna kind of talk a little quickly about them. Now, at the very bottom of this tier list or whatever is imps and hellhounds, so demons like Luna, Blitz, Moxie, and Millie. Then above them is the Hellborns, which includes other creatures of hell like succubi and general demons like, for example, Verosica and Shaz the Party Shark. Then there's Sinners, which are humans who have died and ended up in hell. Above them are the Overlords. These are sinners who have tricked people into contracts, which makes them the owners of their souls, giving them more power than an average sinner. Now, above this is the Ars Goetia, which is the tier Stolas belongs to. Now, there are a few tiers above this one, like the 7 Deadly Sins and Lucifer Morningstar with his family, but that's not really relevant right now. Now, to understand who the Ars Goetia are in the show, I think we need to briefly run over what it is in real life, because the Ars Goetia is a collective of demons that was made in real life, and that some people believe in. So, in real life, the Ars Goetia, also known as 72 Pillars, is a group of 72 powerful demonic spirits whose origins seem to be scattered between various medieval texts and newer ones from the 1900s. The demons within this group have different titles like Prince, Duke, Marquis, and President, among others. Stolas is one of these 72 spirits. He is described as a great prince of hell who commands 26 legions of demons and is knowledgeable about astronomy, herbs, plants, and gems. He's often depicted as a raven or owl with long legs. So yeah, that's the real-life canon lore of the Ars Goetia. However, this lore isn't that fleshed out in the show yet. We've barely just scraped the surface of how it works within the show's canon, but to me it seems that they are sort of a royal family, or rather group, since they don't actually seem to be related to one another, where each individual has a specific duty and role. So yeah, I think that's all you need to know about the show's Ars Goetia. Now, let's finally talk a little bit about Stolas as a character. Now, Stolas' full title within the show is Prince Stolas of the Ars Goetia, and his duty is predicting prophecies from the universe in the stars. He's not very comfortable in this role, as he's pretty much isolated from the rest of society. Anyway, as part of his role, he was given a grimoire, or a magical book, as a child, with which he could watch the stars and read their prophecies. Now, to make a long story short, he met Blitz as a child, which made Blitz aware of the book, and as an adult, he broke into Stolas' castle to steal it, since he could use it to portal himself to the human world. Now, at this time, Stolas was in an arranged marriage with Stella, who, from my understanding, is also part of the Ars Goetia. Except I don't think she has a title per se. I think her brother does, but I don't know. Again, it hasn't been that explored yet in the show, so I can only tell you so much. But anyway, both Stolas and Stella are not at all happy within their marriage and are very toxic to one another. Now, Blitz is caught in the act trying to steal the book and ends up hooking up with Stolas as a means to get the book. The two end up reaching an arrangement where they hook up once a month on the full moon upon Stolas' request, and in exchange, Blitz gets to keep the book the rest of the time for his company. Now, Blitz and Stolas' relationship is obviously toxic and complicated, with both parties eventually catching feelings for each other and Stolas and Stella divorcing. Now, currently in the show, we've seen some pretty big developments in the Stolas and Blitz relationship, but I won't be talking about that since, one, I don't want to spoil too much in case someone hasn't watched it, and two, it's not relevant for these designs. Just know that Stolas and Blitz have a complicated, amorous relationship, and we'll leave it at that and move on. Anyway, as a person, Stolas is quite introverted. He loves to read and learn about various subjects, and he also likes singing and taking care of plants. He's a hopeless romantic, and he can be rather dramatic at times. He also has low self-esteem, like every other character honestly, and tends to think very lowly of himself, letting himself be treated badly by Blitz. He's also very privileged and completely misses how that sometimes affects people that are socially beneath him, so I guess you could say he's quite naive due to his sheltered life. So all that being said, obviously him being a prince doesn't quite work in my AU. Like, yes, he can still be privileged, he can still be white and rich, but the British royal family just doesn't work like the Ars Goetia does in the Helluverse, so instead I've made him part of a noble family instead. And yeah, I forgot to mention, he has a British accent in the show, so he's British in my AU. Now, him being part of a noble family obviously makes his family privileged, rich, and more influential than a regular person, but they're not actually part of the royal family. So basically, my idea is that Stolas' family is large and powerful, and through their nobility and money, they've built several successful companies throughout the centuries. Now, Stolas is the current CEO of one of the lesser companies that is rapidly growing in success and size, and it's located in the US since it deals with a lot of American clients. So, when Stolas and Stella's daughter Octavia was about 12 or so, they all moved from the UK to the US. Now, in the US, Stolas decides to become a client to Blitz's growing company, as it was recommended to him by another family member, completely unaware that the business was dealing with financial crime. Upon discovery of the crimes Blitz was committing, Blitz tried to seduce Stolas in order to keep him silent, whereupon Stolas suggested a similar arrangement as they have in the show, where they would be hooking up monthly in exchange for Stolas keeping his silence and helping Blitz's company grow as a wealthy, powerful client. So I essentially kept Stolas' lore in the same vein, but a bit different. We still have the unhealthy power dynamics between Blitz and Stolas that are present in the show, and it poses about the same moral dilemma when they both eventually catch feelings for each other. Anyway, I know me explaining the lore of it all was kind of long-winded, so let's end it with some comments about the human design in itself. Like Luna, Stolas already has a canon human design that I honestly don't mind too much. I do, however, think it fits better into the show's style and as a human disguise rather than an actual human design, and so I tweaked it a bit while still keeping a resemblance. Now, I feel like Stolas as a person would want to dress really fancy, Victorian-esque, but that his corporate job and status kind of forcing him to tone it down a bit. So, like, he basically wears formal corporate wear with some slight Victorian flair, like big puffy arms and bows. I did feel like his design turned out a bit boring, purely based on the lack of colors, but honestly I think this suits his story a bit, being forced to dress in a boring formal way that doesn't really suit him. I don't think I strayed that far from his human disguise either, save for the fact that I made him less disguisey and more human-y, I guess. The next character is Stella. And yeah, Stella is definitely the design that strays farthest away from how she looks in the show. I know it might be a bit jarring and that not everyone will agree with the choices I've made for her, but just make sure to hear me out first. So, Stella is a bit of a villain in Helluva Boss, depending on who you ask. Am I the villain? I don't think I'm the villain. Now, I mentioned her very briefly in the Stolas section, so let's expand our knowledge about her now. So, Stella is Stolas' wife/ex-wife. She was married off to Stolas while she was most likely in her late teens, I think, as both of them were engaged since childhood. So yes, very much an arranged marriage. Now, we don't actually know much about Stella in the show, which is a pity. However, it's been hinted that we'll know more about her in the future, so that's fun. Anyway, here's the things we do know about Stella. She seems to be about the same age as Stolas, which is estimated to be somewhere in her 30s. Her brother is Andrealphus, another demon of the Ars Goetia. She is seen drinking tea often in fancy tea shops, most likely because it's a very stereotypical activity for British fancy people, and she gossips and talks smack a lot, especially about Stolas. Basically, this far in the series, her entire thing has been hating Stolas, even going so far as to plotting his demise with her brother and actually making a hitman go after him and almost kill him. Her relationship with her daughter is kind of a mystery as well, seeing as we've never really seen them interact properly. Like, is she a good mother? Is she nice to her daughter? Does she care about her? I have literally no clue. All I know is that recent episodes have kind of hinted that she does favor her own self-gain over her daughter's, mental health, which is just kind of fucked up. While I do understand that Stella is a side character that hasn't had that much impact on the plot except for being a hurdle for Stolas to overcome, basically, I think she should at the very least have a personality besides being mean and evil, because that's not really a personality in the first place. Like, she feels extremely underdeveloped, even for a smaller side character. I mean, even within the areas where she serves the plot the most, like in the context of her marriage or role as a mother or a hateful ex-spouse, we barely know anything about her save that she hates Stolas, and that's literally it. So that being said, there's a huge gap to fill when it comes to placing her in this AU, and this is why she looks so different. I've had to invent a personality and a storyline for her, seeing as she almost completely lacks one in the show. Now, most likely in the future, we'll know more about her, and this AU will just not work anymore, but this far, this is my reworked version of Stella in my AU. So in the AU, Stella and Stolas is still pretty much set up with each other. Stella's family isn't noble like Stolas's, but they're rich and influential, and her mother runs a makeup pyramid scheme that is very successful. Now, when Stella was 20-something, it was strongly suggested to her by her father that she should marry Stolas, since his family is rich and influential and could help boost her mother's company with collaborations and sponsorships. Stella reluctantly agrees, although she doesn't really have much of a choice, sadly, considering her family will kick her out of the company if she doesn't comply. So she moves in with Stolas, and it turns out that they hate each other. Eventually, they do conceive a daughter after pressure from both of their families, but that process is what truly breaks them, and they start sleeping in separate rooms and barely speaking to one another. When Octavia is 12, Stolas' family makes them move to the US. Stolas and Octavia hates the idea and isn't content there, but for Stella, it opens up a new world of opportunities. She manages to start her own non-pyramid scheme makeup company, and thus she's rid of the chains that bound her to her family. She breaks contact with everyone but her brother and becomes more rich and independent by the day. When she finds out that Stolas has cheated on her with a man, she is furious but gladly signs the divorce papers, as Stolas was just another chain in her life to her, so she's glad to be rid of him. It does sour the relationship to her daughter, however, and this is something that Stella does feel very bad about, but she tries to hide it and kind of distract herself from it as much as possible. I'm thinking that interest-wise, Stella loves coffee and fast cars, and she loves it in the US. I don't know if that story makes sense for her, but I feel like in the series she's just as much of a prisoner as Stolas is, and she does deserve better just like he does, even though, in my opinion, she seems to be more cruel to him than he is to her, but I can still see the nuance as both of them being locked in this involuntary marriage. Now, for the design, again, I understand that Stella looks very different from what she does in the series, but I do think it makes sense for her. In the series, she seems to be wearing a dress resembling a wedding dress, possibly symbolizing that she's only ever been viewed as a bride. In my human AU, I wanted to get rid of that symbolism, as I feel it wouldn't really work in modern Britain. In a society where she's supposed to represent a modern businesswoman, I feel like the dress just didn't fit, although if it is actually supposed to symbolize a wedding dress, I think that's great symbolism, although it is very sad. Also, I feel like she would really lean into the bleach blonde look. Like, I'm thinking that she has natural blonde hair, but it's more like grayish, not like gray as in her being old or anything, but gray as in the colors are a little more dulled, so she bleaches it to kind of lean into the like beachy look. I don't know, I'm kind of happy with her design, even if it leans into in a completely different direction than she does in the show. The last character we are going to talk about is Octavia. Now, aside from Luna and Millie, I think Octavia is my favorite design of this AU. She's just so emo and angsty, and I just love it. So, in the show, Octavia is the teenage daughter of Stolas and Stella. She is 17 and really angsty. Like Stella, she's not really that developed, aside from within the context of and in relation to her father, Stolas, but she at least has a hobby, so that's something. The bar is literally below hell at this point. Anyway, Octavia is really into singing and music like her father, and she plays the guitar. She also seems to have an interest for the stars, since Stolas showed them to her from an early age, but I honestly don't know if it's actually the stars she loves or just the quality time that she spends with her dad. Either way, her relationship with both her mother and father is rather rocky in the show, seeing as she's caught between them in their messy, dramatic divorce, and is just kind of forgotten there. I mean, basically, Stolas and Stella pretended to be happy to give her a safe, stable home to grow up in, but then Blitz stumbled into their lives, and now suddenly her parents are divorced. For the audience of Helluva Boss, we're told the story through the perspective of Blitz and Stolas, and so the divorce seems a long time coming. This doesn't seem to be the case for Octavia, however, who doesn't seem to have noticed just how much her parents hated each other until her dad suddenly cheated on her mother, leading to a divorce. So yeah, Octavia's character arc in the show is pretty much just neglected child of divorce this far, and she isn't super developed past that role. Now, she's angry at her father for betraying her mother and her, effectively abandoning them in her eyes. She's also angry at her mother as it becomes apparent that she never cared for Stolas, as she rejoices in his failings. Essentially, at 17, Octavia is forced to just deal with the fact that all the stability and love around her is based on a lie, and has no one to talk to about it, seeing as she's just as isolated as her father. This is obviously a lot of weight to put on a teenager, or on anyone really, and as a result, she's very angsty in the show, understandably so in my opinion. Now, a lot of people dislike her for being angry at Stolas, which personally I think is kind of insane. Like, no wonder she's angry and feels betrayed. She doesn't know everything the viewer knows. Her entire world has just collapsed without a single apology or attempt at comfort from either of her parents. Of course she feels betrayed. Anyway, let's leave that debate behind and get into her arc in my AU. So, in the AU, she has a similar story as in the show. Growing up, her parents were both busy with their respective businesses, and so she never really noticed how sour the relationship truly was. She essentially grew up wrapped in cotton in the UK, with a big house, with a big pool, and parents who read and sang her to sleep every night. Her childhood was, in her own eyes, picture perfect, until everything was suddenly crushed when she turned 12 and she was forced to move to the US with her parents. In the US, there's a whole new school system and a whole new way of living. She already had a hard time making friends in the UK, but it gets way worse in the US, and the only reason no one picks on her is because her parents are wealthy. Instead, she's simply left out, which makes her very isolated. Her teen years are really tough, which is how she finds the emo style and way of living, and finally finds a few friends at school through that aesthetic. Slowly, she starts adjusting a little better, and life starts picking up again. Then, her father cheats on her mother, and everything is flipped upside down again with the divorce and the aftermath of it. Her father is absent most times. He's either at work with his lover or depressed on the couch eating cereal. Her mother is much the same, keeping herself busy with work and friends and fast cars. Octavia feels left out in all of this, angry and forgotten just like she does in the series. Now, this is obviously kind of a depressing note to end on, but honestly, that's just how life is sometimes. That doesn't mean that it can't get better, of course. I do have, as a little cheer me up, I have thought of an eventual, better outcome for Octavia. Obviously, she won't be a lonely, child and teenager forever. Life keeps going, even through, hardships. So I like to think to myself that Octavia will most likely end up befriending Luna, as they've already hinted towards that kind of sisterly connection in the show, and that things will get better for her. But, only time and the show will tell. As for her design, I kind of loved all the details I added to her. I've never been emo, so I'm not that familiar with all the accessories and stuff. I just kind of used a bunch of reference picture and meshed some stuff together, so I hope it works. This video was a lot of fun to make. Just like the My Little Pony video I did, I found it so fun to play with these characters and their storyline. No matter if you like Helluva Boss or not, I hope you enjoyed this video. I, for one, love the show despite its various flaws, and I'm waiting very patiently for the coming shorts and the 3rd season. Now, if you have opinions or questions or just want to say something nice, you're free to do so in the comments. Just remember to keep a friendly and civil tone. Now, personally, I'm more happy with some designs than others. I think my favorites are Millie and Octavia. I like Luna as well, but as I said before, I like the sketch more than the finished product, so that's obviously a bit disheartening. But I do like how they all look next to each other with the height differences and everything. But anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you want to. It helps this channel a lot, and it helps me make more content, seeing as I'm currently not making any money off of my videos. I'm simply having fun on the side while studying at uni, and honestly, it helps me a lot mentally to be able to create something like this for people to see. So I thank you very much if you've watched this far, and if you interact with my content at all. It helps me a lot. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Good luck to you, and have a great life.